Hi guys, so today we're doing sadly the last Degrassi video, but what we're doing is that idea I had that's comparing characters that I think are a lot alike. Obviously Degrassi does not always do carbon copies, but they do have characters that are a lot alike. So I wanted to talk about these that I found. Again, you can leave your opinion down in the comments, whether you agree with me, whether you don't agree with me, or whether you have some comparisons you wanted to share with me. I did try to go through every single character. I know I missed a few, but there were also a few that I didn't find any comparisons to, so if I missed any, please let me know down in the comments. This was harder than I thought it was going to be, so please bear with me. First one we have is Craig based off Joey. I've talked about this before. I think that a lot of Craig's storylines were things that Joey did on purpose because Joey became Craig's legal guardian, like driving without a license, cheating on a significant other, and things of that sort. I think that they did that on purpose so that Joey could help Craig through what he was going through, and I feel like that is what they did. Like, I feel like they did that, but also Craig had Joey's bravado that Joey had in junior high and high. Like, he had his cockiness. He had the kind of like don't care attitude until it came to really wanting to respect Ashley. Then it came to working on themselves and being a better person, which we also saw Joey after he cheated on Caitlyn, how he became a better person too through time. Jimmy based off Lucy. Now, you might be a little confused why I said this, but there are a lot of similarities between Jimmy and Lucy. They are both athletic. Lucy is on the volleyball team. Jimmy's on the basketball team. But they're also, like, they're very outspoken. Like, Lucy always stands up for what she believes in. Well, Jimmy does the same thing. He stood up to his dad about, I want to do art, less basketball. Like, he stood up for what he believed in. He spoke out. He also stood up for his friends. He was somebody who would stand up for his friends. Like, even when they were bullying Rick wasn't necessarily his friend, but he still stood up for him in front of the people bullying him. So Jimmy was just someone who was outspoken and always wanted to help the little guy, and that's what Lucy did too. Obviously, Lucy wanted to do directing, and Jimmy wanted to do art, but they were both very driven in the paths, like the careers they wanted to pursue. And outspoken, just the amount of how outspoken they were. Jimmy less than Lucy, but they're still both outspoken. Emma based off Caitlyn and Liz. So obviously Spike was friends with both Caitlyn and Liz, so obviously your mom's friends, some of those traits are going to start to rub off on you depending on how much you see them. Caitlyn, the environment. Emma's very active in the environment. She's fighting for the environment. She's in the environmental club. She's basically like starting to try to make a change in the environment. And that's Caitlyn. Caitlyn was very involved in the environment. She was in the environmental club. She actually wanted to make a change. She wasn't as like, she was very interested in it. She didn't go as deep as Emma until she became an adult and started doing Ryan's Planet. And that's when it really like blew up, and she was the environmental person. And that's why Emma was a fan of Caitlyn, because she was her environmental person. She would watch Ryan's Planet. Like she said to Manny, she wanted Caitlyn to autograph the magazine that had Caitlyn on the front. She was a big fan. Liz comes in when it's about when Manny talks about going to have an abortion, and Emma's like, you can't. Or I guess for YouTube's guidelines, I guess I have to say having a procedure done, and Emma's like, you can't. You know, that's Manny's choice. That's Manny's decision. And it's very Liz, like when Liz was targeting Erica for having a procedure. It's very my way is right. Like, Emma was very much my way is the only right way, and that's the way that Liz is. Caitlin's less like that. Liz is more the my way or the highway type of thing. And that's why I don't like Liz's character. But that's where the Liz kind of comes in with Emma. Allie based off Diana. Now, the reason I say Allie based off Diana is because they both had strict parents. Diana had to go to Greek school and normal school, and she had to keep up with her family's expectations, whereas Allie had to keep up with her family's expectations. She wore certain clothes to school, but then she changed once she got to the school, which is like another, we'll talk about that too. But yeah, they both had very strict families that had very strict rules for them, and they both wanted to kind of rebel against their families and not have to follow their rules all the time. And so that's where that comparison came in. Not much, just other than that. Claire based off LD. Now, the reason why I feel like Claire and LD are alike is because they tend to be very judgmental. That's the main thing I noticed between Claire and LD, because LD does have a normal okay. LD does have, like, Claire and LD both have empathy for their friends when they're going through things. The only similarity, like, other than empathy, the other similarity I found, other than having empathy for friends, was that Claire and LD tend to be judgmental. With Claire, there are so many, not thinking Casey wasn't gifted because he was riding a skateboard to school and he wasn't wearing a helmet and, like, didn't think he was that smart or whatever, and, like, judging Allie for kind of doing it with Johnny. There was a little bit of a judgmental tone in her voice when they were talking about it and things like that, like having S with Johnny. And LD, when she thought Lucy might have had S with Paul, it came out that it was fake. But when Paul was spreading that around, and she might have, LD was judging Lucy for it. And it made me think of Claire, because Claire was very quick to judge people on things like that. And Claire obviously got better as time went on. She had character development, but at first it was that type of thing. So that's why Claire and LD reminded me of each other. Manny based off Erica. I feel like there's a very, like, having the procedure done is one thing, but also Erica wanted to change her image. She wanted to be known as more than a twin, and Manny doesn't have a twin, but Manny also wanted to be known as more than just cute and adorable. She wanted to reinvent her image. She wanted to reinvent who she was, and Erica was the same way. Erica also wanted to reinvent her image. Jenna based off Tessa. Now, Jenna based off Tessa makes me think of how when Casey was dating Claire, Jenna was trying to get in there and get Casey. Same thing. Tessa didn't know that Joey was with Caitlin, but Tessa was still trying to get Joey's attention in School's Out. So, you know, same type of thing. Manny is like Tessa. That's another thing that we're going to talk about is Manny's like Tessa because they both were the person that the boyfriend had cheated on the girlfriend with. Tessa was unaware. Manny was aware. Like, Manny wasn't aware the first time, but she was aware the other times after. Tessa wasn't aware. So, you know. Sean based on Rick. Sean is clearly based on Rick. They come from not so good home lives. Ends up living with his older brother. Sean was living with Tracker. Rick later went and lived with Frank. things of that nature. They both like bikes, like motorcycles. There's just the rough and tough nature. Also, Rick wanting to do more to get closer to Caitlin. Sean did the same with Emma. It's like, you know. They were kind of doing with Emma and Sean what people wanted with Caitlin and Rick. It feels like they were kind of doing that. Liberty based off Alex. Alex, if you don't know, Alex Yanku, the very smart character in Degrassi Junior High, Degrassi High. Liberty reminds me of Alex because they're both very smart, probably like I don't know if he ended up being, because he was in a younger grade, but could have been head of the class. I mean, I know Liberty was valedictorian. Alex could have been. We didn't follow their class to graduation. He could have been. And they were always in student council. Like, Alex was never president, but Liberty was, and so they were always trying to figure out events to raise money for things and things like that, having the meetings. And Alex also had a relationship with Tessa, which was very sweet. Like, Liberty's relationship with JT was also very sweet. They were dating the person that wasn't necessarily the smartest, but they really liked them and everything. And I know Liberty and JT and Alex and Tessa are completely different, but you know, they were dating the person that wasn't maybe not as smart as them, but was still a really good match for them, really cute. KC based off Shane. The reason why I say this is because KC was being supportive with Jenna at first when he thought they had the same thought of how they wanted to handle the pregnancy. He realized Jenna didn't have the same thought as him, and then he dropped her. Where there are differences where Shane wanted to help raise the baby and Shane wanted to be involved with Emma, and Casey didn't want to be involved. They have a similarity of they talked about it at first and they both had the talk. And then when they figured out they were on different sides, they separated. Like, Shane wouldn't talk to Spike for an amount of time. Casey wouldn't talk to Jenna. So it's like, then they came back at some point, and of course, tragically, what happened with Shane happened. He should have had better friends with him. And Casey obviously wasn't even trying to help and started cheating on Jenna with Marisol, but that's the point. It's like they both wanted to be committed, and then they split up and didn't want to do anything, and then they tried to come back together and it still didn't work. At least Shane was doing a little more than Casey was, but still there's a little bit of a comparison there. Lola based off Alexa. The reason why I say this is Alexa was the type of character that would just say off the wall things. Guys, sorry if you saw the cut. I'm trying to think of Alexa lines. But you know, there are those off the wall Alexa lines that she'll say, and it's like, Alexa, like, and Lola kind of did the same thing. Lola would speak without a filter. She would say something and her friends wouldn't say Lola, but they'd look at her like, what? Like, you know, so they both kind of said off the wall things, and then they both got character development as time went on, and they both were just kind of like the bubbly best friend character. Like, Lola was the bubbly best friend character to Shay and Frankie, and Alexa was the bubbly best friend to Michelle. Tiny based off BLT. I put Tiny based off BLT because Tiny is, so BLT is, I don't know much about Tiny being on a sports team. I don't know if Tiny ever was. I don't know much about that. I don't think he was, but on the side of BLT will stand up for his rights no matter what, and Tiny is the same way. Like, Tiny and BLT are not afraid to actually physically fight for their rights, and they will go. Like, Tiny was doing the protest after he got unfairly suspended for the fight that he was in. Like, that was an unfair suspension, and Tiny decided to protest with them, decided to go back on his, I don't want you to do this, decided to go and then protest for his own right as well, where BLT got into a fight for his right. So, you know, there are, and BLT was with Michelle through everything and was helping her deal with her disgusting father. Like, I hate Michelle's father. In case it wasn't clear in any of these videos, I hate Michelle's father. I just really have no sympathy for that man. I really don't. But he was helping Michelle through all that and helping her go through it, and just, most English, basically the similarity is they will both fight for their rights. And they're not afraid to speak up and fight for their rights. So we have a couple more just in the journal. Stephanie K and Allie, like I said, with changing clothes at school. Allie would, in the early seasons, change her clothes when she got to school. Same thing that Stephanie would do, because, you know, Stephanie was dressing more provocatively to get more attention from boys. Arthur and Yick, JT and Toby, those friendships are very close. Obviously Yick was more like JT and Arthur was more like Toby to me. Yick was kind of like the funny one and the funny popular one, and Arthur was kind of like the smarter, more reserved one. And so that it reminded me of JT and Toby. Also, Lucy and Jimmy we talked about, but also Lucy with Shay still being driven for their goals. Obviously Lucy wanting to be a director and Shay wanting to get in the Olympics. So she tried out for the Olympic team and she got it. But Shay was also very vocal during the protests to the police. And that's the same thing that Lucy does, is she gets very vocal about things. And so Lucy, Jimmy, Shay, and BLT, I put them all kind of together because they were all outspoken, willing to fight for their rights, whether it's protesting or speaking their mind or fighting for their right, or, you know, like, then they all had their own athletic goals. You know, Jimmy wanted to be in the NBA. I'm sorry, not the NBA. Yeah, the NBA. And Lucy was playing on the volleyball team, and she was also a dancer. Shay was trying out for the Olympic team to make the Olympics, and BLT was playing numerous sports. Baseball, because he mentions playing baseball with LD, basketball, like football. They're very similar because they're all outspoken, fighting for their rights. And they all did some type of sport, whether it's, you know, and they always all stuck to their goals. You know, Lucy went to school for directing, eventually. Jimmy, he stopped playing basketball, but he decided to start doing art. Shay was still trying to find another way to get on the Olympic team, and BLT, yeah, you know, you didn't really hear much from BLT after the show ended, actually. They kind of stopped talking about BLT. That's kind of a shame. Because, like, I kind of wanted to hear more about BLT. I mean, we know he stayed with Cindy. That's about as much as we know. Spike and Mia. The reason I put Spike and Mia together is just seeing the struggles of a teen mom. They had very similar struggles. Also, by where they're talking about, like, Lakehurst, and they're throwing you, like, things about Mia, learning more about her past, it sounded like they had their children at around the same time. And so you see, like, her struggling to keep up with her schoolwork and things like that, and just her conversations with her mom about you need to make all your decisions around your child and things like that. Okay. Dwayne and Bruce. I said they were similar because they were both bullies, except the only difference is that Dwayne had character development where Bruce didn't. So at least Dwayne had character development and was able to, like, you know, become a good person. I know I said Diana and Allie, but also Vula and Allie were very similar. Again, with the strict parents, obviously similar in different ways. My camera's about to die, so I'm going to go a little faster. Luke and Luke Baker. They were both horrible characters that did horrible things, were not there for anybody, only cared about themselves, not anybody else. Like, just horrible characters. We talked about Tessa and Manny. Terry and Mo with body issues. The Connor football story with Mo is where he kept talking about his insecurities about his body, and Terry talked about her body issues so many times, and when it came out that she was a model, her friends were all really supportive, like, why didn't you tell us, this is amazing? And even Spinner, who should have dated Terry, telling her how beautiful she is. Like, they both struggled with that, and I even I don't know if I want to put that out on the internet, actually, but they both struggled with body issues, and then they both became confident in themselves. Terry became confident as her friends, and Spinner kept telling her, you're beautiful, like, these are beautiful, you're amazing. And Mo even got more confidence when he actually became friends with Connor. And then they started to have that friendship, and then he started dating, you know, Marisol and everything. And then he got English. He started dating Marisol, that's what I meant to say. And then he got more confidence through that. Paige and Stephanie K. This is basically on the minimum that they were both the queen bees. They both ran the school. They both, like, were the it girl. Hazel and Keisha, I put them together because they were in the Queen Bee trios. Hazel was friends with Terry and Paige in that trio, and Keisha was friends with Frankie and Zoe in that trio. They were in the trio, and they were, like, the Queen Bee, and they both eventually got black hold, which they shouldn't have gotten black hold, because Hazel was a very important character. She had her own storyline. She had her own personality. She dated Jimmy. Like, she had her important storylines, and she was an important character. I mean, she still is an important character, and they just black holed her. Same thing with Keisha. She was involved in the storyline. She was always with Frankie, talking about the dress code and Imogen's storyline. Keisha was outspoken about the dress code, what they wanted, what they were fighting for with Frankie. And they did the physical dance number together. They all had beautiful singing voices. Like, Keisha was always there. Keisha should have been a little more supportive of Zoe during the trial, but I digress. Ellie and Caitlin about the environment. That's also why Caitlin being Ellie's mentor was funny, but also Kathleen and Ellie have a lot in common, especially with their mother's addiction to alcohol. It's very similar, and their fathers being away all the time. That's a similarity that Ellie and Kathleen have to each other, and so they also, with that, they also made me think of it because, you know, Sean is telling, like, Ellie, like, I don't want you to live in that situation. I don't want you to be in that situation. And, you know, Rick tells Kathleen that, you know, there are groups to go to talk about it. And, you know, so they're trying to help Ellie and Kathleen respectively, and eventually Kathleen and Ellie do listen, and obviously it's different ways for different times, but they do listen, and it's kind of interesting how Rick and Sean are the ones to do that when they're, like, kind of alike each other. They're alike each other. Yeah, like each other. That's what I meant. Marco and Zayn. After Marco had come out as gay, he was a lot like Zayn. Like, you wouldn't know just by looking at him. And you know, he was friendly with everybody. Like, he was friends with almost everybody. Darcy and Stephanie. The My Room pictures. Darcy wanted attention. Stephanie wanted attention, so she started dressing the way she was dressing. That's kind of like the similarity between the two of them. Danny and Tim. When Danny matured, he became a lot like Tim. Like Danny Van Zandt. He became a lot like Tim. He was very empathetic and very nice to everybody, like friends with a lot of people. Holly J and Claire, they're both very driven to succeed academically, but also journalism. They both had journalism internships, where Holly J had the one with TVM in New York, and Claire had it with the Toronto Interpreter. I'm not going to say the disgusting man's name. The Toronto Interpreter. And also, they were a little judgmental when they first showed up. Connor and Scooter, they were very, very smart. Like, Scooter was very smart. He got accelerated from elementary school to 7th grade to be at Degrassi Junior High. And Connor was in the gifted program at Degrassi. I forgot what the name of the program was. Connor got into the gifted program at Degrassi. They were both incredibly smart, incredibly gifted. Like, they were very, very, like, smart. Like, that is the biggest similarity between them. Fiona and Frankie, being rich. They never had to worry about money. You can clearly see they never thought about money until Fiona obviously lost her wealth, but before that they never had to think about money. They never had to care about money. Declan and Miles, same thing, rich, playboy. Hey guys, so I'm going to continue from where my camera shut off. I know I kind of look like I saw a ghost. It's kind of creepy, but that was when my camera stopped recording. So this is a little bit of a weird angle, but I didn't feel like getting up. So we talked about Fiona and Frankie. Where we left off is Declan and Miles have a similarity. They're like the rich playboy type, but until they find the right person. I know that, like, Declan was a really big, like, playboy, like, type of person because, you know, he was hitting on Mia and he was, like, messing around with Jane and Trish. But then when he got with Holly J, who he had been trying to get with, he stopped being that way. Same thing with Miles. Miles was messing around with Zoe and then messed around with Maya. And then when he got with Tristan in next class, it was like, this is the person Miles wanted to be with. He started actually acting, like getting character development. Same thing with Declan. When he got with Holly J, he got the character development. So that was them. We already talked about Jenna and Tessa. Did we? Yes, we talked about Jenna and Tessa. Yes, we did. I'm sorry. Wesley and Bartholomew. The reason why I put Wesley and Bartholomew together was because Wesley was kind of like the background character that was smart, but like nobody really paid attention to. And I feel like that's Bartholomew. Like, he was best friends with Scooter and he was just kind of pushed into the background after a while. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing that happened to Wesley. Like, it's like the smart character that never really gets like their own storylines and things like that, because Wesley got barely any also. So it's like Bartholomew didn't get any to himself and Wesley barely got any. Jonah and Yick. The reason why I put Jonah and Yick together is because they both had ruined character development. Like, Jonah was a really good person when he first showed up. He was straight edge. He was like fixing his life and everything. And then when it got to next class, he got this bravado and this cockiness that was just disgusting. And Yick, same thing. He was a really good kid, and him and Arthur had a really good friendship, and they like balanced each other well, and they were really, really good friends for each other. And Yick was becoming a really good person. And then Yick started hanging out with Luke. and Luke is not a good person, and Luke wasn't going to help Yick be a better person. So yeah, but anyway, so thank you guys for watching. Let me know which characters you think are alike. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Please be respectful. But yeah, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!